We are doing hypnotherapy certification training. There's a lot of material to cover. This field is so exciting. It's amazing at what we can do with getting your brain on board, getting your unconscious mind on board. And we're going to be talking a lot about that through the next few days as well. We also have a special guest with us, Shaun Christensen. He goes by the Hypno-Hick. He does a lot of hypnosis shows locally, both with rodeos and events and at fairs and at high schools. His show is amazing. Seriously, I went and saw one of his shows. It's amazing. I actually have the CD that you created, so we're going to watch that so you guys can see what he's doing on the stage show. Yeah. So we're going to really utilize his skills for the skill set that he brings as well. So, my name, Holly Stokes, the brain trainer. I've been practicing with hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, and coaching for 14 years now. I started in Portland, and I was actually in the track of psychology. I was in the academia world to go through the bachelor program and then into my master's program. And I remember how I got started with hypnosis. It was one day in psychology class, and our instructor was talking about the placebo effect. So who here knows what the placebo effect is? Yes. So this is the idea that just by taking a sugar pill that doesn't have a medication effect, that by somebody thinking that they're taking a medication, their body will heal and repair, or they will report new symptoms, or they experience something very different at a physical level. There's a great video, we'll be going through that as well, about the extent of the placebo effect and some of the research. Even doing mock surgeries, people will miraculously heal. Anyway, we're watching this placebo effect and talking about it, and one of the very last scenes of this video that we're watching in class is a man undergoing brain surgery using no anesthesia, only hypnosis. He's experiencing no pain, and he's awake and talking with the doctors while they're operating on his brain. Well, the video stopped and the teacher's like, "Oh, that's all for today." I'm like, wait, what was that? So this is before I got into hypnosis. She was like, "Oh, that's just hypnosis." I'm like, well, what happened? Like, something is happening that it's overriding the pain signal. She's like, well, there's some good research with the NIH, National Institute of Health. They've done a lot of research in holistic methods. But she's like, we're not going to cover it in class. It's not acceptable in the mainstream world. It's becoming more acceptable, but at the time, it was still kind of like under the carpet, you know. Hypnosis is just entertainment. So I found a local school and I was hooked. And when I learned these skills, hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. To be able to help people make that internal change habits, cravings, behaviors, patterns, and really get out of those stuck places we experience in life and get to living a great life, an amazing life, getting to be on your purpose, on track with what's important to you. So I was excited and got right out of the certifications. I collected certifications from all over, and then I was like, okay, this is it. And I opened up shop, and that was 2006. And has it been challenging at times? Yes, but it is so amazingly rewarding that just how much I love this field, how much I love working with people, making a difference in their lives as they're befriending their brain and their unconscious mind. This is huge, and it makes such a difference for people. So as you're learning these skills, whether you use them with yourself, it can change your life. Whether you're using them with friends and family, it can make a huge impact. Or even if you have plans to be in the community as a professional and work with people, you know, one-on-one, or even if you take to the stage shows. So there's just so many different ways that you can apply what you're learning here, and you're going to love it. It's just such a fun training. And we're going to start with Shaun, so let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. So my name is Shaun Christensen, as she said. I started in hypnotherapy in 2003. I got certified through the National Guild of Hypnotists. When I went through school, it was 5 months. We did it 2 weekends a month, and we did it for 5 months is how I went through school. And I got certified in 2003, opened my office in Provo called the Hypnosis Center, and started doing hypnosis there. And then the next year I started doing comedy stage shows, and that just kind of took off, and I've just had a blast doing the shows. I still do one-on-ones clients. I have an office in my house down in Payson where I see clients, one-on-one clients, and I see 3 to 5 a week is what I'd like to see, but I do more shows. Last year I did 82 shows all across the western United States performing.
Yeah.
I'm also
So he's famous. He's our claim to fame.
Yeah. So in 2014, I got certified in what's called forensics hypnosis. We'll talk about that another day. But so I got certified in forensics hypnosis and also in PTSD, which is another certification you can get. And then I also became a certified instructor through the National Guild of Hypnotists. So I'm like Holly, I'm certified to teach and certify. I do 3 classes a year where I certify. Holly and I co-taught our last class last time. We had so much fun teaching that class, so I was excited that you were putting another one together.
Yeah, and it's just, we have different skill sets that we're really good at, and then we ended up just being so complementary. So it's just so fun to have Shaun with us.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I love teaching. I also am the president of the National Guild of Hypnotists chapter in Utah. They're actually starting a second one up here in Salt Lake City. Mine's down in Linden, where we have our National Guild of Hypnotists meetings, and we'll talk about that another day too, about how to join part of that. You're going to be part of that, but you can come and get continuing credit hours that you need to have to maintain your membership with the National Guild of Hypnotists.
And also just to have community and colleagues that speak this language. That's a lot of fun.
It is, it is. And once this class is over, after your 100 hours of training, we're still here for you. So feel free to contact us, say, hey, I'm having issues here, or hey, I've got this client that's got this weird problem, I've never worked with that before. We will totally guide you through that kind of stuff. And so feel free to contact us when, it doesn't mean, oh, next Monday we're done with class. No, it's not like that. There's a continuing friendship that we like to have. So, yeah.
Great.
So that's my story. So what do you guys want to get out of this class? What is like your goals? What are you hoping for?
Skills to help people. I mean, really.
Yeah, even persuasion skills to help people want to help them.
Persuasion.
Yeah. Because I have all these tools to help people, and they're just like, whatever, lady. So I'm like, how can I get people more move past their own hurdles easier?
Yeah.
And myself, of course.
So we'll call it get out of stuck.
Yeah.
Great.
For me, I would say I've noticed people kind of look at you as like a mentor, almost a little bit too much. So I kind of want to put the power back on them with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to empowering people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, empowered. And because you already have a client base, empowered clients. Great.
For me, I've done the same thing for 20 years, and it's easy for me to have confidence in that. And sometimes I think, what am I doing? Why don't I just go back into this field? I'm comfortable. I have a knowledge base there. So some of it is, I'm looking to take away a greater degree of confidence in my ability to transition away from, one career and make this a career.
Yeah, great. So we have kind of 2 pieces there. One is some increasing or boosting the confidence, but also new career, which comes back to really helping people and getting the skills to make a difference. Right. And then you're on a professional track, so we'll add that to augment your profession. So is most everyone here using it as more of a therapeutic, kind of seeing clients one-on-one?
Yeah, that
Great.
would be my approach.
Okay.
But why not fix ourselves, like you said?
Exactly. Work on ourselves. Self-growth, which is, I'll talk toward you. Self-growth is just a great way to utilize this. I use the skills on myself all the time. Also, my background, I came from a traumatic history that I was hooked when I found out how usable, workable, applicable these skill sets are for my own mind, my own healing as well. So self-growth, that's a great part of it.
So be open for self-growth in this class. Things change, it's cool.
Oh, I also wanted to use it as a component of public speaking.
Great.
Hypnotize my audiences to love me.
I do.
That's really good.
Get paid putting people to sleep.
He's
That's
made a
great.
career of it.
That's right.
If there's anything I love more than mental health, it would be politics. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we get. That's good.
It'll be interesting to watch now when you're watching commercials or TV. When you're done with the class, you're like, oh, they're using the hypnosis tool. Oh, they're using NLP right there, and it's kind of
They use it all
Right.
day long.
Yeah. And advertising too. There's a whole psychology behind. Great. As far as like applications of hypnosis and what you've heard about hypnosis, it's actually a very large field and incorporates like there's a lot of different variations or rabbit holes or applications. So what would be some of those that you'd like to cover in this class? What would you like to learn more about? I mean, we're going to give you a basic skill set, but depending on where your interests are, we could also kind of tailor the experiences we create in using hypnosis for your interests and how you want to learn more about it. So it's kind of like thinking of the niches within hypnosis. What are some of those aspects that you're interested in?
I would say addiction. Does that answer?
Yeah?
I worked at Odyssey House and
I've heard about Odyssey
Yeah.
House.
and I told the clients, I just did a internship there, but they were so frustrated because it didn't matter how much talk therapy they had.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't get to the root of the issue.
I
And
know what I
so-
need to do. I can't
Yeah.
make myself do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So addiction, and a lot of addictions are similar. Hypnosis is well known for weight loss and stop smoking, but a lot of addictions operate with the same principles.
There's one of my students, she is doing a full-time business right now working with social media addictions with teenagers. So they go on this retreat, they take their cell phones away, they start freaking out, and she's doing hypnosis this whole weekend with them. Very, very cool stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a retreat. I like that.
Yeah.
Limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, reprogramming is part of those limiting beliefs.
Great. Okay.
I would say a lot of the SERs that I do with, they're like either traumatic events or like even just like sorting through emotion.
So let's call it SER's memories
Mm-hmm.
and emotions. Okay.
I also, as a content creator, just like understanding the principles, like really having impactful messaging.
Okay, so it kind of comes back to that persuasion. So we'll say messaging.
Yeah.
Messaging, content,
Mm-hmm.
creating, creator. Yeah, as a videographer, I'm sure you use that a lot with projects that you work on. And we had another one?
I don't know if this kind of ties into the two limiting beliefs and the content, but I don't think people live their potential.
Yeah.
I just don't. And I think it would be really cool to find a way to help people connect with their higher selves and unleash that
Okay.
for maximum life capacity.
Higher self,
Activate people's placebo.
potential. Now we're talking.
Yeah, the elimination of fear.
Placebo, fear, clear the fear.
My brother, he's a special education teacher and talks a lot, he and I have conversations about, the potential application of instilling or helping children develop skills to calm down and to focus and to not just be all over the place in class. But I don't know if you start to get into the realm of needing pharmaceuticals at that point, or if there is an application with
There's a
ADHD.
lot of skill sets that kids can learn. Oh, so we'll add children on here, how to work with kids.
There's a female hypnotist she has 2 offices, one's in Colorado Springs, the other one's in Denver, and she only works with autistic kids. So there's
Yeah, I wondered about
and
that.
I don't know how she does that or how she
Parents
gets them
or-
into trance. I don't know, but I know that she's running a full-time practice, two businesses with that.
I don't know, and maybe, of course, this doesn't really have to do with the kids, but sometimes maybe the schools need to change. Maybe they're
Yeah.
expecting too much out of the kids.
Right. I've always thought that, like, take a 5-year-old who has, like, been with 5-year-olds before.
Yeah.
Like, their bodies are all wiggly and they gotta, like, their minds are just going everywhere because their bodies are growing. And now you're gonna stick them in a room with 30 other little wiggly kids and tell them to sit down, be quiet, and don't move. like some of our systems are just, yeah, not natural, right? Okay, great. For children, ADHD.
I like the idea of like exploring people's like internalized biases, and especially when they are experiencing something like, I mean, I have friends with like mental illness or like within LGBTQ that have those internalized biases against like what they are, basically.
Yeah, so what would we call that? We'll call it biases. I would also call it like labels. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wonder if and labels. How people are seeing themselves.
And a lot of that has to do with programming from church and families and schools and your teachers and your friends from when you're little. And then they, as you're saying, the LGBTQ, they start coming out of the closet and things are completely different. Now God hates them and family hates them and it's, it's...
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like some of that programming. Yeah.
A lot of guilt comes in, especially if you're dealing with organized religion.
Yeah.
Help people work through some things that they've picked up that really is kind of a misrepresentation and the message has been misconstrued. Not the message in itself
Right.
calls for that type of guilt or teaches that, but the way that the message is delivered and then culturally how it's lived.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guilt coming out of organized religion that could be dealt with in this way too.
So we can even look at that as like separating culture from self, right? So that's kind of that programming, but recognizing what's culture versus what's self. And that's a lot of blocks come from our culture. Our culture doesn't necessarily teach good principles, It's like consumerism, don't have a feeling, go buy something, go to a movie, get away from that emotion, put it back under the carpet. So, great. Any other areas of interest? And think about this. This is a really good idea to keep in mind too. If you were going to specialize in hypnosis for helping people with a certain area of their life or a certain aspect, what would you want to specialize in?
So an example is I do a lot of sports hypnosis. I work a lot with sports teams, and the reason being is because I do fundraisers for them, and so then I'll work with the team. I just work with the drill team on Monday, and that's a lot of self-confidence. So that's kind of what she's saying. Where would you specialize your field? What would you guys like?
I think relational, because so much is rooted in relationships and how we perceive or interact with others.
Great.
Grief.
Great.
Good one.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that in this field.
It's heavy. So I kind of hesitate because is that something that I really want to be doing? You know, and having people come to me all day with that because they're heavy emotions. But if you can help somebody through that, steer them and shorten that time frame at all.
Yeah, it's a big relief to be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's needed, and I would also encourage you because that is your background. You've been there. You've been through that process. You know how it is to go through that and have to get your mind to shift those pieces, right? So that makes you one of those. I've been there. I know what it takes, and here's how I help. That's a great niche. Yeah. So typically in the psychology profession, you'll go have your visit with your psychologist. They'll look you up in the DSM to get the codes about what your condition is, and then they'll give you a diagnosis, and then that kind of puts you in a box with that label. Now, there's a lot of value to that system, but it's a different view. Actually, that the world of psychology kind of came from the background of the broken personality, so they're looking at what's wrong with you, whereas the field of hypnotherapy, the field of coaching, kind of grew out of the humanistic psychology aspect. Well, hypnosis has been around for a couple hundred years at least. It even goes way back to our primitive cultures, or I would say indigenous cultures, where they're using ritual to get people into altered states of consciousness, right? So it's part of what's been around for so many years. But kind of looking through the lens of our Western culture, there's a difference in how we kind of see people. So the coach, the hypnotherapist, sees the person not as the problem, but sees them as a person in the process of learning and evolving. And I'm sure, you know, there's crossover between the things, but we don't diagnose, treat, or cure. We don't give that diagnosis, but what we're looking at is what skills does your inner self need to face whatever challenge you're experiencing in life. So how can you think better, feel better, and be faster at overcoming whatever challenge you're experiencing?
The thing that's popping in my head right now as we talk about that is we have kind of, here's our job here. So we have a conclusion, right? Which is, I can't lose weight, I can't stop smoking, I can't do this, I'm having a problem in this area, blah, blah, blah. That's the conclusion. And the reason being is because they have a story that supports this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so our job is we hear the conclusion, we hear the story, and then what we do is we come up with what's called open to all possibilities, right? So we're going to say, okay, you're having these limiting beliefs, or you're having this biases, and we are coming up with this new thought process for them. And then we use the tool called hypnosis to change the story, which gets rid of that conclusion, because now it's something different. And that's kind of what our job is in a small little picture.
That's a good framework.
So
Yeah.
that's what I like. So
And
that's,
it's the conclusion that keeps people stuck. Those ideas about who they are, what's possible for them.
But what was, okay, so there's the conclusion, the story, and then what was the
open
third?
to all possibilities. That's
Okay.
where we come in, and we say, well, what if you did this, and what if you did this, and how about this idea? And we're giving them ideas, and then we use the tool of hypnosis to kind of foreshadow or to see what's happening and see themselves in this new technique. What would it be like if you looked thin? What would it be like if you would no longer smoke? What would it be like if you could play sports at this level? And they're like, oh my gosh, right? And we use this tool of hypnosis to solidify that, to open those possibilities.
And I also did the side rant about the difference in how we see people, because I also wanted to say, even if you're working with an issue that's heavy, it's at the end of the session, people, and it can take a few sessions, especially if it's something very deep, but people tend to feel relief after. So you're not leaving them in that box of there's nothing they can do, they're broken, they're always going to have the problem. That's not the box we leave them in. And so even through that process of helping them learn whatever skill sets, and their mind can fill in the blanks. You don't have to know everything. But that's kind of the background of humanistic psychology, is recognizing our human potential is so much greater than where we are in the moment. And that we do have access to our own answers, to feel empowered. We can build up whatever inner resources we need to address that situation. So even if you're working with a population that might feel very stuck, like addiction or grief, you're not seeing the person as the problem. Does that make sense? Great. So there's a lot more hope for that recovery, for getting them to be more in charge of what their unconscious mind is running. Cool. Anything else to add to this list? I'm going to take a picture of this, and then we're going to revisit this near the end to see where we've come.
I think what comes up for me a lot too with clients is like kind of ancestral or like past life type stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's like.
We can call it generational history.
I've worked with a lot of the LGBT community, and a lot of their issues are from past life stuff.
Yeah.
So I bring that up a lot. Yeah, that's very,
Yeah.
very powerful, interesting tool to work with.
Yeah. And even if you don't believe in the past life thing, just think of it as how the mind codes it. So people don't necessarily have to believe in past lives to get their mind to change some old event. So, but it's coding it somewhere. It's like you said, it's the story, the conclusion, the story, and then the open to all possibilities. So somewhere in the mind has coded some story. Sometimes it can have a generational thread, a past life thread. Even if people don't believe past lives, just think about putting it in the frame that works for them. We know that belief systems can hand down through generational systems, right? So for instance, the Depression. Yes. Think about how many ideas are still floating around our culture from the Great Depression. Like, this is time of plenty. This is time of, well, mostly plenty, going through the pandemic and being totally out of toilet paper. And there are some shortages somewhere. But yeah, we typically, our grocery stores are stocked. We can easily have access to food. But there's ideas like money's hard to come by. How this showed up for my mom, this just little quick story that really illustrates how these beliefs get transferred. My mom has a big warehouse that's full of stuff she never uses. I'm like, Mom, you gotta kind of take care of some of these things. You're not really using them. Let's start clearing them out and giving them away. She's like, oh, I might need it. I'm like, okay, so this is kind of like on the edge of hoarder mentality, right? That we're stockpiling too much stuff. So I said, where did this come from? Asking your unconscious mind to bring up the memory of where this first started. First thing that comes to mind. She's like, oh, I was about 6 years old, and she had a memory. I was about 6 years old, and I was taking a piece of string to the garbage can, and her mom, my grandma, caught her and said, Linda, what are you doing? Oh, I shared her name. Linda, what are you doing? She's like, I'm going to throw out the piece of string. She's like, no. She pulls down a jar of string, opens it up, has her put the string in the jar, and says, if you throw something out, it may not come back around, and puts that string back up on the shelf. Right? So what idea was she telling her about messaging, beliefs? Don't throw things out. Right? And then that became a program, so she doesn't throw things out. She just adds it to a warehouse, and it gets more cluttered. So we can recognize generationally, just from that experience, she was picking up some of that generational history. The Depression wasn't her experience, but it was definitely her mom's, and then that was perpetuated by what her mom was teaching her. Did you have something?
So I was on Facebook the other day, and I had a cousin that brought up the same, and generational, I believe in that, because the emotion code, we learn that through the DNA, that energy can transfer. And she brought out the comment that the racial issues of America today is a lot of this. It's not because, systematic racism or anything like that is so prominent. It is because those people are trying to cleanse.
Yeah,
They're trying
it's
to cleanse.
coded in that history. Even like she said, coded in the DNA. I've worked with African American clients and traced things back, and their generational history had some form of injustice because of the color of their skin, like being a slave, or they came from some of those histories. So yeah, it can go very deep, right? And yeah, I like that frame, so that they can cleanse, so that our culture can cleanse from its biases and programming, and we can hopefully come out better on the other side of it. Yeah.
So, is any of this explained with epigenetics, or is that not something that you talk about as much within
You'll have to remind me about epigenetics.
Epigenetics is kind of like a marker in your DNA that's like a suggestion. So if this, then this. So it's like if the
Yeah.
situation arises, your DNA like recognizes it. And it's like, okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of it's limiting beliefs. There's some crossover to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are the programs about money like in our DNA, or is it in our mind, or is it kind of both? And as we go through this, there are no fences in our inner personhood. Everything's interconnected. So if you change a perception, if you change a belief system or a program, other things can change as well. And we get more into that with addressing physical health issues, that often health symptoms, health issues have some mental component, some emotional component, even a generational or some history component. And when those clear, then the body is able to rebalance and heal itself as well.
Yeah, I think like with the epigenetics, it's like especially with fear, like reframing the fear, like then you're not having that cortisol effect on the body, and then you're not turning on the genes.
Right.
Yeah. And how much is the gene? So kind of in my own experience, I had an autoimmune disorder that according to Western medicine, you'll never recover from. But their only solution is here, take this pill, and it might give you cancer in 10 years, but that's the best we can do, right? So because that's their system, that's what they know. But with the background of knowing hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, how to clear all of this stuff, I spent a good bit of time clearing up my own history, and then I found out later my grandma had had something similar. She had symptoms that were similar to mine, but that was kind of before the whole autoimmune, the awareness of autoimmune disorders had come up. So I recognized in my own process of clearing out, actually it was past trauma, stress patterns, those things that create that interference at the unconscious level, then offsets or creates interference with the body's systems and processes as well. So when I cleared that up, I was able to leave that condition behind, even though there was probably a generational component as well, and medication-free and no symptoms. And if symptoms come up, I know what to do about it. So it's definitely opens up whole possibilities. Remember that diagram, taking people to open to all possibilities? Is it possible that you can overcome this challenge? Is it possible that you can heal? As long as we keep that openness to possibilities, there could be many routes that could get you there.
One thing I think could be added to that, and it sounds interesting, but overthinking. I think we spend a lot of time dwelling on the past and in memory, or projecting into the future, and deny ourselves the opportunity to be in the only moment that we can really live in, and that's the now. And to be present,
Yeah.
and to be present in the now, and to bring all of your systems into
Coherent.
yes, coherence.
Yeah. And overthinking.
So just help people realize, hey, a lot of your day and a lot of your time is spent in memory of the past,
Yep.
or projecting to what you're hoping will be a better time in the future, and you've taken yourself out of this moment right now, which is
Yeah.
the only moment that you can really ever truly experience.
A
Kind of an Eckhart Tolle
Yeah.
type of a thing.
very common pattern, not just thinking about what we want in the future, but how many people are projecting negatives into the future. This is worry. What if this? What if that? What if I get a flat tire? What if I can't pay my bills? What if my relationship leaves me? All of these things, all of these worries that we have, as long as the mind is doing that, how much stress, anxiety is that going to create? Right? Yeah, great one.